I was sitting with you and I didn't want to say all these things, but something about you just always makes us want to tell you our whole heart.
It's the first time I've like cried in front of like a group of women, and
I love my life in the real world. Like if you want to find me, I would say come and catch me out in the streets, you know? So
and that's where I was like, okay, something has to change.
and it's still taking more years to unravel both the grief, the pain, to become the next version of myself that I'm also meant to be.
Okay, let's get started. So hi everyone, welcome to Goûter. Thank you so much for being here today. So for those listening, watching, or in the room who don't know me, my name is Ali Potel and I'll be your host for the podcast. I am French and Canadian, so I thought, why not do a podcast in English, obviously, but give it a very, very French name. So it's called Le Goûter. It means snacks in French, and it's a moment to pause, to breathe, to relax just a little after school or work before going back to your day. So that's really the energy of this podcast today. And Le Goûter was created as a space for real talk, the kind of conversations we usually have with close friends late at night, or in those long voice notes we sometimes record but never send, or even voice prompts we send to ChatGPT or Claude. We have all done that, right? So you're very welcome for the audience to react, to laugh, to gasp. We love that energy, and that's the goal of in having like a live audience. But please put your phones on silent. We'll record for about 60 to 90 minutes, and then we'll open the floor for questions from the audience. So today's topic is the invisible pressure to have it all together. And with us, we have Rachelle and Efe. Do I pronounce your names well?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
You got it. It's French, so.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, yes, Rachelle. So let's start with the intros. When you introduce yourself at parties, what do you say? Let's start with you, Rachelle.
Okay, so my name is Rachelle. I'm the owner of Olive Grey Creative, so it's a web agency based here in Vancouver. We support a lot of service-based companies and a lot of women-owned companies as well. And I've had that for about 4 years. And with that, I've built my company on referrals and networking. I do a lot of networking. And through that, I found a gap or a problem through networking and the interaction of exchanging information. So I've created a second company, which is called Our Network, which is building a solution for in-person networking. So it's an app, web application, and hardware as well.
Wonderful. What about you, Efe?
Yeah, Efe Fruci, been here, God, 8 years now. And I guess you could say the things that I do brings me joy. I'm very grateful because I say I don't have a job. I live and breathe what I love. I've been running my charity foundation for the past 6 years called ODE, and we focus on providing free access or low-cost sort of resources to BIPOC women. And every year we gather for a big day called the Big Ideas Conference that I've been hosting as well since 2023. And that's open to women from all walks of life, where we talk about things from leadership, how to get through the door and be able to connect with people who could help you, really reach your potential. And so outside of running my charity foundation, I have been a global international speaker. So I'm a multi-hyphenate speaker with a background in biomedical science and health science. And so my journey is, my portfolio is really diverse because curiosity has really afforded me to build a life I'm proud of. And recently went back into healthcare in Canada after doing healthcare in the US and UK, and now working with BC Cancer and supporting patients and family who are going through chemo and just making sure that their care are optimal to the excellence, and making sure that their voices are also involved in that care. So
Oh, yeah.
many things.
Yes.
Yes, what an expensive career for both of you. So let's start with you, Efe. When people look at your life from the outside, what do they think you have figured out?
Everything. Everything. But I think I think there is this mindset that people have that because I'm a strong woman, I'm an independent woman, that I don't often need help. And to be honest, I think I grew up not asking for help because I was always the fixer, the one who had everything sorted out. So people came to me to ask for advice to figure out their next move. And why I appreciate that, I think now as a new mom, I've recognized the damages that could also come with that, because you need to see people, you know. So I'm challenging my circle, my village, and even my community that I'm in now to see me as a human, not this superhuman. Recognizing that I might be able to get a lot of things done, because my husband would say, what's my superpower? Every gets things done. It doesn't matter what it is. I just figure out a way. But I'm also trying to let people know to soften that a little bit and just recognize that, yeah, I'm human. I can do a great things, but I'm also trying to not have that expectation to always be performative, to be able to do all these things, but just recognize and let me be me and let me be human, knowing that there are going to be days where I just want to rest. I want to actually like take a step back. And so I'm learning to lead with my own actions, so other people also know how to receive me and also how to love me and how to support me. So
it's all being a little bit more vulnerable,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Vulnerability is very important, and I've always been that kind of person. But I think yeah, getting softer in terms of like letting people know that, yeah, I can fix things, but it's okay if you also do it yourself. Yeah.
What do you think, Rachelle?
Oh, I was very, very similar as well. I think people, every time I meet up with, I do a lot of posting on social media, especially for my networking and my business. And that's 1% of my life. I think that's 1% of anybody's lives. It's pretty curated. And they see it as, oh, you have everything together. Look at you. You're so successful. And it's like, well, that's what I want you to see. Well, my business is, and it does do really well. There's the other 99% that they don't see, which is me, you know, at home on my laptop trying to, you know, rebuild my entire team so I can step away from Olive Gray more and focus on our network, and the tears that come with it, and not knowing what I'm doing. Building this tech company is a completely different space. My confidence is like at an all-time low with it sometimes, because I'm learning terminology and words and hardware and tech that I just haven't been in a space before. And also I don't have children and I don't have a partner, and I'm doing it all on my own. And I don't think a lot of people are aware of, like, even when it comes financially, emotionally, mentally, how kind of hard that is sometimes. But I also grew up in a home where, you know, from the outside we look like we have everything together, but it was a little messy. And so also being a fixer and a middle child, I also have that too, where reaching out for help has taken me about 5 years. I hit burnout really bad 5 years ago, and it made me realize, like, I can't do it all on my own, and I do have to ask for help, and it's okay to ask for help, and it's okay to be vulnerable, and it's okay not to be okay, and to tell people that. You still have to have it all together in certain situations, like with clients, and you know, if I'm at a networking event, you know, obviously I'm not gonna be like, hey, I'm going through a lot right now. You still have to have that kind of that facade, you know.
I guess you can with the right people.
Yeah, right. You have to find the right people that you can be that around. But definitely, I don't think anybody has it all together, but a lot of us just come across and we want to be perceived that way. And that's okay too. But I do think you do have to have the other side and the people around you and the spaces where you can still be yourself, and you don't have to have it all together.
And do you think that when you actually open up to people, because both of you have now, when you open up to people, do you think that they are more kind of like helpful, and they are very understanding, and that people can actually also be like, oh, it happened to me as well, you know? Like, do you think that it helps?
It's a mixture. It's a mixture, and it really depends on the environment and the spaces. It's a mixture in the sense that, like I said, I moved here 8 years ago, and the difference between the mindset here and folks in Europe, and maybe you could share yours from Paris, because Belgium is kind of like you are who you are. You know, there's no everybody has their own persona, but you can go outside in your tracksuit or be whatever way you want to be, and nobody really cares. Here, I think it's all about the community. There are people who want to be vulnerable, who want to share. There are people who are also nervous because they already have like past trauma and scars, so they don't know where to begin to open up or let people in. And for me, I think I've been told recently, and like many times, and recently came up just 2 days ago actually, where somebody said, I was sitting with you and I didn't want to say all these things, but something about you just always makes us want to tell you a whole heart. And why I appreciate that and I take it with such great honor that that's something that I can allow you to show up and be as yourself. I also protect it too because I think it's sacred that when people do find you trustworthy and want to share something deep and they go, oh, you know what you just talked about is relatable to me.
Yeah.
I think it's special. But other people as well, you could be vulnerable with them, but they don't want to be vulnerable back. And so I consider that as it's okay too, because maybe they're not at that place. I just let people be who they are and still find it brave enough to share my part and give you that platform to be yourself. And maybe one day when you feel comfortable, I'm around to be that anchor for you if you need it. But yeah, it's a mixture. Yeah, it depends on where and who and the season people are in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. I also grew up in I studied engineering and grew up in my first I grew up in corporate, like that around men and engineers. And it was like, don't be vulnerable. Don't talk about your feelings. You just show up at work, you leave everything at the door. And I kind of built my career on that. And so also just, that's all that's all you know, it's really hard to all of a sudden be like, okay, I want to be vulnerable because that looks like I'm weak. And like, how are they going to look at me? But then I think over the past few years, I've found the spaces and like you said, the people around. Like I have a women in business group and we meet every month and we just talk about everything we're going through together. And it's the first time I've like cried in front of like a group of women. And I even told them around Christmas time how I wasn't feeling confident in what I was building and I was restructuring everything. I was going through a lot, but like I was covering it all up. And they had no idea. They were like, we wouldn't have known, like, we're here, like, we can help you, you can ask for help. And they came and hugged me. And even that, like, even physical touch is not really something that I do a lot.
Okay.
But it was just a safe space. And I was like, okay. And they all were like, they all opened up and talked about what they were going through and their difficulties with confidence. Like, I think we all have that as women too. We're always comparing, especially with social media. But yeah, I think that it's okay to be vulnerable. Like it definitely is. And when you are, more people open up and you're just more relatable. They're like, okay, you're not this like thing that I've put on this pedestal, you know? So, yeah.
I think it's important because like you said, you nailed it there. Social media, I have a love and dislike because hate is such a strong word for social media because I've been told for a woman of your magnitude, you could be X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, yeah, but what does that truly mean? I don't post on social media because I don't have the time. It's so important for me to spend that time with my family. I love my life in the real world. Like, if you want to find me, I would say, come and catch me out in the streets, you know? So I think it really does box a lot of people in and they have this image and mindset of who you are. And then I don't ever want to create a persona online as to who I'm not. And so a lot of the people who follow me from the beginning and when they come in, they notice this. Because when I share my story on my feed is when I have something truly important to say. My vulnerability about my journey to IVF was really the most deep thing that I think I talked about last year when I announced that I'd given birth to my daughter. And so for a lot of people, they knew the journey because I gave a talk a few years ago about it. And so that was the first time people ever knew what I was not hiding, but what I was dealing with. And to some extent, the magnitude of what it was. But then when I talked about it last year, people were like, whoa, I didn't know you went through 7 rounds and it's been 5 years. I was like, yeah. So why you see me out here in the streets doing my work, traveling, busy, my husband has been holding down the fort, making sure that I don't actually lose my plots. Like I had a small knit of people that saw me in my deepest pain and they held me together so I could show up in the world. And because of my faith, I also knew that I had something to anchor myself with. But I am exactly who I am in person as I am online. Don't expect anything different, you know? So I'll give you straight with love if you ask for it, you know? So yeah, vulnerability is important. But I try not to actually live my life on the expectations of a bunch of people who are just scrolling through, you know, online to actually like dictate what my life is or what I say and how they accept it or not. It's really
without
just about
knowing
living
you
my truth.
fully as well.
Exactly. So I don't give them that access, and I think that is where I kind of draw the line. Like who you give access to online and offline, and just make sure that people see who you are. And wherever I show up, I always show up with my heart. It's up to you to receive me how high I've been, and that's okay. If I'm not the person or the image that you once thought, that's okay too. but this is who I am, right?
Regarding your journey through IVF and everything that you went through, would you say that people see you as a strong woman?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they always have been that mentality because I am very expressive of my real life moments.
Mm-hmm.
I tell people about, my journey to even living and working in Oxford was not an easy thing. My advisor thought somebody like me wasn't what they were looking for. In my mind, I'm thinking, what does that even mean? As a black woman and you white woman, you're giving me this advice when I'm just simply asking you for a recommendation letter.
Mm.
And that's the comments that you make. It didn't matter. I still said, you know what, that's your opinion. Thank you very much. I didn't accept her letter because I didn't want something negative to be the start of my future. I figured out another way. I talk about how I went through so many jobs, Starbucks, being a chef, to get into nursing school, and then become a biomedical scientist. I talk about all these things all the time online because I want people to understand I got here because of grit and because I wanted to. This is my dream. This is my vision. I took a whole long and windy road to get to the exact spot of where I knew I was meant to be, the seat that I deserved in this world. And now that I'm here, it's not about giving anything up. It's about bringing people into that same space to sit on the table and say, hey, what are you dreaming about? How can you get it? Because at the end of the day, it's about you and your willingness to try. So people, think that I'm strong and I got all this thing together, but I do let them know that it took years in the making to become this woman that I am, and it's still taking more years to unravel both the grief, the pain, to become the next version of myself that I'm also meant to be. But hopefully they come along that journey and see both the vulnerability, the authenticity of it, and also me just being human through all of it, and they can also challenge themselves to show up as their truest form. That's my only ask. Always walk around the earth as yourself and not somebody else, because that person that you are is beautiful and somebody else out there is waiting for you
Yes.
to just be you.
Yeah.
Right? So,
I
yeah.
totally agree with that. What do you have?
I would say
something
very
to
well
add?
said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
So, Rachelle, do you think people assume successful women are naturally confident? I'm asking that because you touched this topic of confidence earlier.
Yes.
So, do you think people think that?
Oh, yes, for sure. For sure. I think it's also how we approach things as well. Like when I walk into a room, there's certain cues that I know to do and how to walk and where to look and what to do. So there's certain things too
What are the cues?
Yeah. What's your cues? I want to know too.
well, you definitely naturally we when you walk into a room, you're nervous and you turtle. Like, so a lot of people do that, especially a room that you haven't been in before or anything. So you always want to remember to bring your shoulders down and back. And I do this thing where you pretend you have like a piece of string on your chest, because it's awkward if you just go fully back. Like, you don't want to bring your chest out. So it's a string up, so you're kind of lifting your chest up and down and back. And then at any time I walk into a room too, I stop and I scan. And instead of looking down or looking, for a table or go somewhere, you kind of make eye contact. You don't have to look at anybody. You just make sure you scan, you keep your head up. I also do this thing visually where I try to make myself as big as the entire room, like fill it, like almost with my energy. And so, like a flying squirrel, how they've got like,
I love that image.
So I make myself a flying squirrel, and then I reach for the corners of the room, and I'm like, I've turned myself into that, and I've kind of like taken over the room.
Good.
And it makes me feel more confident. I feel like I've filled the space, and then it's easier to enter. And then also just how you walk as well. It's just you take your time. Like, you're entering the room for you, not for anybody else. You're not in a rush. Just like take your time, slowly walk in, see where you need to go, find your spot. And I think that just helps. It also helps you breathe. Like within the first 5 minutes, that's when your anxiety is the highest. So you're just like, okay, taking this in for me. I'm scanning, I'm doing my checks, and then you feel a lot better. That's usually how I enter it.
So I think those are really great tips. But do you think that you're doing those to show the world that you have it all together, or are you doing it just for you to feel comfortable?
I definitely think it's for me. There's a big thing when I hit burnout about 5 years ago. I was I was a director and of projects in web for an agency, and previously I helped build another agency, and it got to a point where I was just giving all the time. I think as a leader too, like I loved the role and I loved supporting my team, but I was just giving too much, and naturally I'm also a helper, and I realized I wasn't giving anything to myself. And if you looked at everything, like I had checked all my own boxes, like I wanted to be a director, I wanted to have the team, I had the condo and the dog and the things, and I was the unhappiest I had ever been. Like I dreaded going to bed every night, and I dreaded waking up to face the day. And my body was shutting down, like the brain fog, the memory loss. I would wake up and it feel like I was like beaten, or I'd just like gone to the gym but I hadn't done anything. And that's where I was like, okay, something has to change. And so from there I was like, I ended up quitting, and I was able to take a year off and focus on me, but it was building trust with myself and showing up for myself again. And with that, it was me, I started to show up for, I just was like, as a child, what did I enjoy doing? So I started going to events that were like pottery classes, or like making cedar roses and things, and I had to go. I couldn't say no, because in Burnout, I was canceling all plans. I wasn't showing up anywhere. I wasn't seeing friends. I was literally going from my computer to my couch. And so with that, it did turn into networking and building my business, but those are all, I'm doing it all for me. It's for me to show up. I'm building the trust back in myself and showing up for myself and reminding myself like, oh, you're doing this for you and nobody else. When it gets to a point again, which it kind of did a couple months ago, where I was starting to get a lot of invites to events and kind of showing up to networking things, but I was just showing up just to show up. And I was like, and I was feeling the burnout coming with everything that I'm building. And I was like, wait, I have to pause. Like, why? What is my why? And like, why am I doing this? And so I was like, I have to stop and do the things for me. So a big part is, yes, obviously there is still a version that I want to present. I do have confidence, but there are certain situations that you just don't feel as confident. And so I definitely, it's showing up for me and reminding myself that anybody else going through that, I think too, just doing things that feel aligned with you. I think what makes you come across, well, shows you that you have it all together. I think don't do it for anybody else, because again, you're just not authentic, and it's just gonna burn you out.
Yeah. So you said there are certain situations where obviously you weren't as confident as usual, or things like that. Was there a moment where keeping it together became impossible?
I would say that burnout was the big one, where it was literally like my body was shutting down. Like I probably would have kept going, but I physically was like, okay, something needs to change here. And I realized it wasn't just the job. Like it was me and how much I was giving, and it was my habits and what I was doing. And so that's where I was like, things need to change here. And that's also where it was I was not talking about what was actually going on to anybody, whether it was at work or in my own life. I just lived in this corporate world where it was like, put your head down and always protecting the team. I was like, if anything went wrong, it would be my fault. If a project went really well, it's on my team. Like, and I've always loved that. And it's a leadership thing that's like, shows how much you take on, and you shield them from all the things that are going on, especially when you're dealing with a lot of clients and enterprise clients. But I kind of forget the question there now.
No, but that's a great answer, because you were saying that it's your burnout who made it impossible to keep it together. Or what was it for you? Like, did you have a moment like that, Efe, where keeping it together became totally impossible?
I'm trying to think about my life to date, and I guess mine is very different. My mom is my role model in a lot of ways, because being a young girl, growing up to her as a missionary woman, an educator, she had gotten a scholarship to pursue education, and so she had the whole full ride. But her passion was in nursing, and later on in her 40s, we went back to nursing school together, which I think was really dope. But as a kid, she really told me that I could be anything in the world, and I believed her. And I ran with it, and I've still been running with it. I'm 39 this year, and I think my confidence is something I've built my whole life, and is at a point where it's unshakable. That, again, it's all about access. I think it's a privilege to be in people's lives. It's a privilege for me to share this space with you. And so my life is this sort of world that I've built it in. So I don't want to pretend that I have everything together. I always show up as I am. And that's one thing, even all the way to my marriage. I tell my husband if I'm upset and before we walk through our friend's door, I'm just like, listen, I'm not going to pretend that we just want screaming at each other in the car. I'm just going to let them know that we are just not on talking terms. They don't need to know the full detail because that's me and you. But we'll go in here and then we'll laugh and maybe we'll fix the situation before we leave. But I think when it comes to the situation, again, it goes back to that line in that place where I was with our situation with IVF. That's where I think I let the world see the biggest hurdle that I was actually juggling with everything else, because my life was going exactly how I wanted it to go. My career was beautiful. I was in corporate, and then it became a stressful thing that I was like, you know what? I'm just going to leave because my peace is more important. You're not seeing me. I'm just another resource for you. I'm just going to go full on again into my business. And so when I shared what I was going through and started seeing people who were telling me about their own journey, women coming through to say that in their culture, they can't discuss these things outside of their home, I felt like it was a rebirth, not just for me, but for a lot of people who had been silenced because of their fear and because of the pain that they were going through. So it gave me an invitation to not just pretend that everything was fine, because it's not about me. That's the thing I've learned very young, that my life is not about myself. It's about the people around me in my community. The actions and the choices that I make affect everybody around the world, whether I believe it or not. And so it's my responsibility to try to do my best to live in my truth and to show up in the world in a way that is not only respectful to me, my mother, and God, but to be respectful to other people. So when I do things business-wise with my team today, I just tell them and be like, hey, I don't have it all together today. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm going through. I have to do X, Y, and Z appointment for my IVF. Can you hold the fort here? Many of them have showed up because I'm being communicative. I'm being expressive. And I think in the corporate world, it was very different. Very similar to you. I'm being asked to show up in a lot of capacity that I know is not the right way to do things, because we're not robots or people. You're not meant to be perfect every single day, and that expectation is a very, very huge burden to give to someone. And so I run my operations very different. My team are very different. They show up to me, I break bread with them, but they understand that there's also a line that we don't cross. When I'm wearing my professional hat, we stay on track. When I'm actually like your friend will kick in, we stay on track. So they check me to make sure that I'm not performative, that I'm intentional always. And so yeah, I don't think that there has been a point outside of that very moment when I realized that, okay, it's okay to just let go of this bag that you've been carrying by yourself and let people carry it with you.
But when did you realize that? What changed? Why all of a sudden you came from, I would say, struggling silently to, okay, I'm going to share what's happening in my life?
I was standing on our garden on our house, I can't remember what year, and I contemplated the thought of what would it be like after losing a child? What would it be like if I actually just take a lip off this edge? Would anybody care? That was my moment. And I remember standing there and asking God and saying, this isn't it. You told me my life was meant for a great purpose. This can't be it, because you promised me a child. It is right there in your word that whatever I ask for, I would receive, and I've asked you for this. I know you're going to give it, but I just don't know what the timeline is going to be. So this isn't it. I'm not going to do this because this is what, my mind is telling me that would be the end of it all. In that moment, I realized that there are people counting on me, not for me to help them, but for them to understand the courage it's taking me to even get to this point and to take a step back. Everything changed in that moment. I even said yes to the TED Talk in that moment, even though I've said yes, but that was an affirmative yes for me to be like, you're not just going to be like, I'm not doing it. And everything changed beyond that point, in the sense that my business, my life, my friendship, I was making sure that the people closest to me knew what was happening a lot more in that small circle, rather than waiting until everything was at a boiling point, or I was already burnt out and exhausted, or I feel torn because so much has been taken that I could barely give. So that would be that moment when I actually thought it was easier to quit at life than to actually fight. And it was just a very small millisecond. And it took me enough time to understand that no, I can't ever allow myself to be at this position. No matter the pain, no matter the loss, I have a purpose in this world, and I love my life. I love my family. I would miss all the things that I have been so fortunate to have. And so, yeah, every time I think about my situation or when I'm in a very desperate place, my mind always go back to that hour, to that moment, to that sacred space that I shared with God and myself, knowing that if I could get through those hurdles, if I could get through those 3 painful loss, there is nothing that I cannot. I can never accomplish. And that's another thing from my Rolodex as a young child that I've already overcome, but now in my adulthood that I can combine together to always show myself that you are capable of anything. It's all in our mind.
Yeah.
Our own worst enemy, you know? So
We
whatever
are.
you tell yourself you can do, and if you actually are strong enough or you're assertive enough, I think you can always achieve whatever you want. You can be whoever you want. Yeah. And maybe you call it delusional, but I live in my own optimistic delusional.
The more
Let's
delusional,
be
the better. I'm
delusional,
all for
right?
it.
Yeah,
So
me too.
maybe that's
Me
where I've
too.
been.
Yeah.
Maybe that's where I've been, and that's where it is. But yeah, I love your examples as well of your confidence. I think everybody needs that. I always wear clothes with pants because I put mine in my pockets, and I
Yeah,
feel
I
the
don't want to do
tallest.
that.
Yeah, I always put that in my pockets, and then I actually like film myself, and then I'd be like, "You're present, you're here, you're grounded,"
Wow.
and then I take my hand off and I just go on stage and I talk
Yeah.
because I talk to thousands of people, so I can't really allow myself to be bottled up by fear because I think fear is a teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you listen closely, it will give you all the tools that you need.
Yeah.
But if you actually are not being self-aware, it can make you a prisoner. And I choose to be free. So
Yeah.
yeah.
100% agree. Even I teach confidence and networking and do workshops. And the one thing, it's your fear. It's anytime you're nervous or entering something, even, coming to this podcast, there's a side of my brain that's like, don't go, cancel, don't show up,
Well,
just
I'm glad he
bail.
came.
Yeah. And I'm like,
glad he
and
came.
the other, it's like, I'm fighting an angel and devil. And I'm like, no, we're going to show up, and I'm constantly training myself. But it's the whole thing it's a fear. Like you're scared to enter a new room or do a new experience. It's just your body keeping you safe. And when you feel that, you got to be like, no, this is what I'm supposed to do. Like take it and turn it into like an emotional growth moment rather than living in that fear, because you on the other side it feels so much better once
So
you do
much
it and you
better.
get through it. You're like,
Yes.
I did it.
That's what I was going to ask you. Be like, give yourself a challenge. I always love giving people homework.
Yes.
Give yourself a challenge and always ask yourself when you feel that way, like why you do, like why am I feeling this way? And when you search deep, you would learn that it's because you have so much to give, but you're probably just thinking that nobody wants to hear it.
Yeah, exactly.
And most of the time, it's never true. So always lean towards the truth instead of the lies in our lives. Yeah. It will guide your path. Yeah.
I think we touched a little bit about childhood, like you were talking about your mom, and you talked as well a little bit about that, like when you were younger. I think that a lot of who we are today as adults has to do with, your childhood. So do you feel that maybe when you were younger, you learned that vulnerability wasn't safe for you?
Oh,
What
that's
would you say,
100% where it stemmed from. Like I said, after my burnout, I did a lot of inner work, like inner child work. Like 5 years ago, if you would ask me like to meditate or go to yoga or do any work on myself, get a life coach, I've been like, no, that's not me. And now I'm like, yes, energy healers, all of it, like come to me, like I'm totally open. And so and it's also, I'm 38. And so from your childhood, you've learned these things where I grew up in a family where we were not allowed to talk about our feelings or be vulnerable. You just, keep quiet. There's 5 girls, so it was a lot, but you keep quiet and you don't, and also being a middle child, you kind of like, without realizing, you kind of get forgotten. And then, so you always just kind of fend for yourself. And so I was raised that way. And I also learned to work through my feelings and my emotions alone. And so I still do that as an adult. Like I self-isolate, but I don't do it in a toxic way. I always get through it because even with the problems that are happening, I do have the people around me that I can talk to and like even now, my sisters and I, were very open. We talk about our feelings. We're all into all the manifestations and all that stuff. But I still, because a lot of things, like especially in my business, like nobody else is going to fix it but me. So yes, I can take advice and stuff, but I have to take that time for myself and figure it out. And a lot of time I do it a lot better on my own. And there are some people that don't understand that, or they think it's weird or it's odd, but I always come out better on the other end. And like I enjoy, also I love being by myself. Like I love my own company. Like I go to movies by myself. I take myself out. Yeah, I take myself out for dinner. And like I didn't realize, like I do it so often. People are like, I could never do that. And it's just something very natural to me. And
do you think it is because you said 5 sisters? Yeah. Do you
4
think
sisters, so it's 5 of us all together.
Okay, 4 sisters. So do you think it's because of that? Because you were surrounded by people, so now you're like, I want to be on my own.
I think there is a part of that too, and it's like, if somebody wanted one thing, then we would all have to get it. So a lot of times we wouldn't get it, or things like that, and also just like being disappointed. I think also I was in my 20s, if I wanted to go to this like zoo or something, and I invited a friend, but they were like, no, I don't want to do that, I don't want to go. I wouldn't go. And then I wouldn't do it. And in my 30s, I was like, no, if I want to do it, I'm just going to go do it.
And I can do it on my own.
Yeah, on my own. And like, and if I want to go see a waterfall, then afterwards I want to go swimming or somewhere. It's not dependent on anybody else's time or what they want to do. And people can come along with me if they want, but I'm going either way, And so I do think, growing up with a lot of siblings contributed to it, but then, and like, being disappointed, I guess, in a lot of ways. That's and so word. Now, like, I can't disappoint myself, but even like I'll go and friends are like, you didn't invite me. It's because I do. It's still running 2 companies. You're giving a lot, like just naturally you're managing teams, and it's a lot. And so sometimes at the end of the day, I just want to be by myself and be around people, but not with people. So like I'll just take myself for a long walk and in downtown and around the city, because I do, and that's why when I go for dinners, I want to be around people, but I just don't want to be with anybody to have like a talk or give anything more. I just need to reset.
I agree. I think it's the word that you use, disappointment, because for me, when I look at my childhood, and yes, if somebody had told me that I would enjoy therapy as much as I do today, I would probably have been like, you're a terrible person. How dare you say something like that, But I think my childhood was both beautiful and also very traumatic. And I tell a lot of people that, I don't wish anything on my enemies, the things that I have had to endure. I talked about this in my first book. And so my life is kind of like not a secret, because people who need to know already know. And so that's why I built it as well, in a way where you can't go and find any skeleton and be like, oh my God, Efe is what it's like, you're just finding out now, honey. Sorry, but I think having like people who don't worry about you built me to just kind of get on with things. I went on dates as well. I love that. I encourage my sister to do that way. When people say, oh, you want to travel, let's go to whatever, I'm like, okay, great. I take it, and I'm already booking tickets as soon as you're done, right? I'm already like moving through very quickly. Same thing with business. Everything comes back to me. Like I have teams that I have to manage, and it doesn't matter whether they're doing their own different tasks, but when it comes down to the nitty gritty of like funding the foundation, for example, this part is where it is both stressful and on my shoulders, because I want to give so much. There's so many people relying on the work that I'm doing. And so I don't want to disappoint them, because I know what it feels like to be disappointed. I know what it feels like for someone to inflict pain and then call it love, because for me, that's the opposite of love, right? So because I've experienced it, I've lived it as breakfast, lunch, dinner, I know I can never be the same source of doing something like that to somebody else. So there's that line, I guess, that you don't ever cross in life. So that's where I guess when we're talking about this, I'm like, yeah, that's me. Take yourself out for a lunch. I love to be around people, but I also love to decompress. I love my music therapy. Just let me sit here for a while. My husband understands that. Even now as a mother, he takes our daughter. He just drove her off to God knows, I don't know, maybe commercial to Cafe Calabria, and just sit there. But he understands who I am, and I'm grateful for my person, because it still allows me to be a human being, a person, as a woman, before a wife, before a mother. So all those things he understands are my priority, but he gives me the space to exist and not feel like I have too many people reliant on me. Because he would take our daughter when he knows that my schedule is heavy. Planning a conference is not easy. You know this.
Yeah.
You know, I even talked to Ali in the first place to actually be, that's how we connected, to actually come in and help me run this event. And so,
it's massive.
you know, it's massive.
Yeah, and you're doing a lot as well. I
Yeah.
mean, you know, when we heard both of your introductions, like we realized that both of you are doing really a lot. And I think that there is a lot of pressure on your shoulders, right? To show up, to show that you are, you have it all together and you're confident and everything. You were talking about trauma that happened in your life. First of all, what's the name of the book?
Oh, don't worry, it's an old one. Faith over fear. Wait for the next one coming.
And can you share a little bit more about those trauma?
Yeah, I think the trauma that I'm talking about is from my childhood. What was it? Maybe 6 or 5. I can't remember the date now. I woke up after a birthday party, just a couple of, I think maybe a few days or a week after, and I couldn't taste what I was eating. You know, I couldn't really enjoy a meal as I once did. If everything felt like sandpaper or whatever paper is supposed to taste like, I used to eat it as a kid. I guess that's the great example I can have. But it quickly became an issue where sporadically this illness came, and it almost stole almost 10 years of my life, being hospital bedbound, having oxygen and a bunch of tubes and things keeping me alive, literally. And so for me, when I think about my childhood, I think about these moments, the sacrifice of my mom and sacrifice of the people who supported me. That I thought was traumatic. But the worst part of it is, imagine having your own father who's supposed to love you, care for you, reject you. But the worst part is, instead of actually helping you to propel your future, because I graduated high school at 13, my goal was to be married by 25, you know, click everything off, to arrive at a new country in Belgium and almost get sold into sex slavery by your own dad. I think that's like, when I think about like all the things I've gone through, that's just like the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
How old
So,
were you? 13 at the
I was
time?
15.
Okay.
I was 15 years old when all of this happened. And it was a very interesting thing, because I'm sat here like this in some random woman's house who's telling me what exactly it is that she does with her body, with a man. And I'm thinking, this is awkward. My mom is like, if situations like this happen, you know what to do, because she's a very good mother and give us triggers and safe word and things to do. I went to the bathroom and I called her in those old school nice Nokia phones. And she was like, yeah, just come up with something. Just say, you know, like your period have started or whatever, and just come home to me. And I remember going back out there and just saying, I'm not feeling well. And just remember a hand coming across my face like, how dare you humiliate me in front of da 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 da. It was, I look back at it now and I think, it couldn't have been me. You know, I'm thinking like, that wasn't my life. But it was like, yeah, it was. You were meant to be protected as a child, but this is the way he showed you love, because he also had his own traumatic experience as a person. And that's not my job, because you didn't deal with yours and now you've passed it on. So that's one thing that, you know, that I'm talking about on top of the million things. So when I look at my life and where I've come from, this is where my confidence comes from. This is where my joie de vivre come from. This is why I don't take no nonsense. This is why I'm protective of my space, where I go, how I socialize, even in places, because I'm supposed to be networking and doing a bunch of things in this city, but you don't see me.
So
you know.
would you say that your independence is actually not really a choice, but more a survival?
I would say in the past, yes. I would say in my early teens, 19, maybe into my early 20s. But I think everything changed at 25, because that was when I found myself. I had just moved to the UK as on my own. I was like, I'm going to go try a new life, you know, left Belgium fully, and started this new trajectory in the UK. And I absolutely loved it. I went through this whole, I'll shave my hair, get the Halle Berry hair from 007, you know, and had a reckoning and cried, literally took my afro in a bag and took it to my mom. And was like, what have I done? But the moment that it happened was, I remember standing right in front of my bedroom mirror in this apartment that I was renting. Shout out to Danny, who was my landlord at the time. And I remember just standing in front of the mirror and looking at this girl who was so fragile, but she wasn't anymore. It was like a whole new person that I was staring at. And I just remember just sobbing. Like, I'm not even doing anything, but just staring at myself. And that was the moment that I actually realized that I was a human being. You know, when you see yourself and you feel like you're embracing your inner child, that was the moments that I actually started feeling so free of both my past, but also stepping forward into this new woman that I was actually becoming, who was so brave to not only leave behind a past life, but to be stepping into a new city, a new place, no friends, nothing to my name, and starting afresh. But I was so excited, fearless, and I was just like, let's go, girl. And I haven't looked back ever since, right? And so that was the moment I saw who I was meant to be, and I've just been embracing her ever since.
That's really powerful.
So I don't ever want to leave on survival mode. I've tried it. It hasn't worked. In fact, it's isolated me from the people who most dearest to me. And so I'm not running away from anything. In fact, I'm chasing my future self.
We all are.
So I hope I never ever have to return to that state of mind. And if anybody's ever there, I hope you can find your village, your people to help you come back, to draw you back to yourself, knowing that you don't have to live in survival mode. You deserve better.
For sure. And I'm really sorry you went through that. It is extremely, obviously, traumatic.
I appreciate it. But we've moved on. I forgive him. And I understand that it's just part of my story. Everything I go through, I realize that God has given it to me to help somebody else to survive theirs. And so when I share about things like this, it matters to me, because I don't say yes to I don't do podcasts. I get invited to many. I don't even know why I reached out. My team told me about your introvert, and then you brought this up. So
look at future self being
look at the conversation that has actually came out of it is the opposite of what I wanted or what I thought this conversation would yield. But here we are in our truths and in our element. And so, I try to be as obedient, when it comes to who I am and the purpose and the mission I've been given. And sometimes he actually lead me to the best places, even though I didn't know I was meant to be in those best places, but he opened something in me, and I'm always grateful for the experience. So
and we're grateful to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a surprising turn of events.
So Rachelle, you were talking about having four sisters. Do you think you have any coping mechanisms that actually made you successful?
That is a very good question. Well, I would say for coping mechanisms, I would go back to and I don't like using the word self-isolate. I feel like it kind of has a negative term to it. It's definitely that, I just take the time for myself, but we have kind of similar stories where I also grew up with a father that was not so great. And I think also where that having it all together really came from, where we grew up very Catholic. We would show up to church early. We came across that perfect family. And I remember a moment too where my younger sister was getting ready for church, and she had a sweater on that my dad didn't like or wasn't good enough. And he slapped her across the face and said, "Go change, you have a better sweater." And I remember, I think I was about 14, and I remember that where I stood up to him. I went down and I was like, "You do not hit her again. That's never happening. She doesn't have another sweater." And from there on, I was kind of the only one that stood up to him through then. And I think through that too, I've always been like that towards men. I've had this thing where you're not gonna control. I'm not gonna let you. You're not gonna tell me what to do. And I think that's kind of what has gotten me to where I am, because I also worked in a very male dominant field. I had no problem talking to the CEO, and if I asking for a raise or countering my offers. There was no intimidation, because I think I just kind of pictured them as my father, and I was like, fuck you.
I agree. I'm there with you, girl.
So I think, I don't know if I could say that, but I think that definitely
you can. Not in that kind of way, but you can say that.
So I think that's definitely, and I do live not so much anymore, but I've always lived very much in my masculine energy. I've always kind of come across that way. Even when it came to dating and stuff, I've always been kind of, a lot more. in a good way, I think, though, because it's gotten me to where I am. So I'm definitely more in touch now with the feminine side. Like, I'm like, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to, it's not weakness. Like, it's okay to, just come across a little more softer, even with my team. Like you said, how I run my team is completely different how I ran in corporate. Like, I leave the space open to, have those conversations, or if you need a mental health day. And even for myself, like, we can't give 100% all the time.
No.
There's some days I wake up, I'm like, all I have is 20% today. What can I do within the 20%? And so that things are still moving, but then, maybe tomorrow it'll be the 80%, who knows? But I think definitely my coping mechanism, I guess, is just like, I guess I was always kind of like, I think even just as being a female too, we're always fighting men. Like, I remember too, running an agency with another man, we would walk into a meeting, and right away, like, even if you see a man with a woman, they assume like the woman is a assistant or receptionist or something. And you're like, no. Even having tattoos, working with like engineers or developers, like larger scale companies, I remember too, if my sleeves would roll up, they would look at my tattoos and look at me differently. So I hid my tattoos for a long time, and then when I started my own company, I was like, no, this is who I am, this is my company, this is what's happening.
I love that.
And I definitely, like, once I started my own company, my whole goal was to be 100% authentic. How I approach my meetings and how I run everything is just like how I want. Been through it all, right? Been through the corporate, knows how it all works, and it's just like, there's so many things now that it's just like, no, we're not doing that anymore. But
good for
No,
you.
I agree. I definitely resonated. I think when it comes to dating guys or even talking to men and being in male dominated spaces, I realized that no, you don't kind of control the space. We do it together. You can either allow me to resist and we exist in this space together or not. But even dating, before I met my husband, I gave him a lot of homework. So crack up about it, because I was like, I need you to show me your will of life. I need you to give me this and that, the interview questions, because I didn't want to end up in another situation where I am responsible for babying an adult, and being replacing someone's mother.
A man-child.
Especially taking care of your husband when it's supposed to be a partnership, because you've already spent your whole life taking care of someone. And that's why I thought I didn't want to also have a child so early on into a marriage, not knowing what the road ahead was going to be like. And there's a lot of women, like us who prolong starting a family, getting, married because of what we've had to sacrifice, behind the scenes that nobody would ever acknowledge or be aware of. And so, a lot of those things definitely. And I think my journey in life is why I am successful. I tell people I'm really wealthy because of my health, because of my husband, my child, my friends, my family, and that's what I consider wealth. And so I have surplus of it. And so that's because of what I've had to go through, and the audacity to never quit or give up that has allowed me to be able to build a successful 2 businesses, and a career that's still going. So I think it's also why I wanted to be very employable, because I know what poverty feels like and homelessness feels like. And so I never wanted to be out of a job. And that's one quality I'm grateful for, that with my Rolodex, I can pull out a card and say, I want to go work in this space and genuinely be successful at that, because I've given myself that chance to learn a skill, to adapt to my environment, and build a future that's bulletproof, of disappointment.
Yeah.
Exactly. So,
So would you say for both of you that part of your success actually comes from fear?
I would say maybe growing up in a household where we were rich then became poor. It's like, people say rags to riches. Mine was riches to rags.
Yeah, we had that too. To go back to that. My dad lost everything.
So maybe it's your strength here.
Maybe at one time, but I think definitely not now.
Yeah, and now you're healing and you're in a different journey.
Definitely paved our path to understand how to invest, how to spend wisely. And it goes back to trying to live within your means and not living for other people, because hey, I've seen my dad do that, and then in the end the whole money was gone because you're trying to impress people that care less about you. They don't even acknowledge you exist, and then your children suffers for it.
So we're talking about healing and rebuilding. So what does healing actually look like in real life? For example, for you, Rachelle?
I would say mine was recognizing that I needed to heal was a big one. Because I was like, even talking about therapy 5 years ago, I was like, there's a stigma, like there's something wrong with you. No.
Right, there is the stigma around therapy.
It's just like, but now I think everyone's talking about mental health, and it's almost like it's like cool to be in therapy now.
It's become fashionable.
Yeah, it is. It's like you're not in therapy. Wait. So I think recognizing, for one, just that for me, that I needed to heal, and then I just decided to take the steps that I first felt comfortable with. Like I was like, okay, I do need to. Well, when I hit burnout too, I did realize once I opened it up and told people, oh, I'm taking time off, I hit burnout, they were like, yeah, like we saw it, like, which I didn't really, even clients, they were like, yeah, you were doing way too much, so we're not surprised. And I was like, oh, so people did realize around me what was happening. And so then I was like, and also reflecting like, oh, there's stuff that I'm doing that I need help with. Like there is a lot of childhood trauma and things that I was just brushing under the rug that if I kept living with it and just shoving it down wasn't going to get me anywhere. I was going to keep doing the same things and the same habits. So I was like, okay, let's address that. It's really scary to do. It takes a while too. It's even like I'm still like 4 years after my initial burnout, I'm still in recovery. Like there's still things that I'm like, okay, no, I feel it creeping, I'm not going to do that. Even my agency, I could build it to be a massive agency. I was like, I don't want to do that because I was like, I don't want to go back there. So I'm keeping it the size that it is because I'm like, it's sustainable and it works for me and it gives me a comfortable life. But I'm still healing. So yeah, the things are just, for me, it was just getting out of my space and doing things that I loved again. Like for me, I was like, what made me happy as a child? Like I wasn't laughing. I wasn't doing anything fun. And to this day, I still like, sometimes if I stop doing the things, I feel it coming back. So like one thing I love is Aquafit, and my girlfriend makes fun of me because it's a bunch of 60-year-old women and I just go swim with them. It doesn't matter. You show up, doesn't matter what you look like, doesn't care if you shaved your legs or your armpits or your bush, you just have fun in the water with these ladies. And it's like my favorite thing. And my girlfriends are like, you're never going to meet a man there. I'm like, that's the point.
I don't want to be the man there.
And you never know. Maybe their grandson.
Maybe. So what are you still struggling with today?
I guess mine is still struggling to ask for help is a big thing. Yeah. And I have a women in business group. So there's a group of us, I think there's about 12 or 14, and we meet monthly. And even recently I was trying to help in any way, like whether it comes to my business, because I'm super independent, and that was one of my big values. And I actually recently changed that. I was like, I assumed independence was to do it all on your own. Like that's how you got there. It was just, you figure it out, you get through it. And I have done that for many years, but now mine has switched to, it's independence, but it's more freedom. I'm like, what can I create that gives me freedom? And then like, who do I surround me that gives me freedom, like financially and in my life when it comes to time and things like that. And so, I would say, yeah, I was like, I forget now what your question was. I keep going on tangents.
Tangents is good. Yeah. We've uncovered so much in our tangents.
Exactly. I was just asking what you're still struggling with.
Right, yeah. So it's the asking for help, for sure. And it's hard too because I do have very supportive people around me. And my sisters and I were close, and I have family and other women in business. It's just still me being like, okay, not me being like, I think I'm still worried about disappointment. I'm asking for the help and maybe they're not available, or at that time, then you go, okay, whatever, I'm still doing it by myself. Yeah. So I've gotten very good with my team, like I'm like, do it, take it on and stuff. But just personally, like I said, I was preparing for an event and I wanted to get a few things ready and I just didn't have the capacity or time. And the event ended up happening and I didn't have it and it was fine. But I was telling the women in business, they're like, you could have reached out to us. We could have got the t-shirts. We could have done this. And I was like, very thankful for it. And they're like, so even the goal as we walked away from our last meeting was like, Rachelle needs to ask for help, Yeah. So that's one thing I'm still working through is the asking for help.
So you were saying, Efe, that you kind of mastered, talking to people about your struggle and everything, right? I mean, you're doing it more and more and more. Yeah. So how do you decide who actually gets access to the real version of you?
I decide based on people's hearts after spending some time. I'm a very good observer. My uncle was in the military and he used to teach us about how to read a room, how many people are in the room. how many chairs, how many, he was so like adamant in case there was, God forbid, some sort of like doomsday drop, then you can help. I'm like, I'm 12. Why am I going to help you know what I mean? But it stayed with me for such a long time that I got to see the message behind it, is because he wanted me to be mindful of people and how they could present themselves with too many layers of who they are. A lot of people wear masks for whatever reasons. I don't judge, but I think I give access to people who can match the same level of me in terms of like when I ask you for help, knowing that this is not my nature and it's not something I do easily, and you show up. Actions is how I give access to people.
Okay.
If you're not doing things, not for me necessarily, because guess what? I can do all those things. My husband understands you don't need to buy me stuff because I can buy myself the things. But it's the action of who you are as a person, how you treat your neighbor, how you treat your sister, your family, what you do behind closed doors that is reflective in person. That's what matters. How you show up for people, how you help, what you do in your community. That's how I give people access, because I don't like when people are just sweet talkers. My father was that way. I wouldn't call him my father. He was that way. This man was that way. And word was flying left and right because it's like a commodity.
Yeah.
I give people access based on action. What you show me is how I choose what I share with you. Because it's a choice every day to be a good person. And I don't want to constantly feel a burnout that people are always taking from me, because the one thing I know that I've always seen, and it hurts me the most, is people know I love to give. And my therapy told me this once and said that you already know this, Efe, she started and said, because you said it to me, that you give one of your clients that you were coaching at the time this same example, that you're giving so much because you wanted to be noticed when you were younger and nobody ever noticed you were there. And so when she said that to me, and she was like, I'm just going to remind you of your own words. And I said, now I get it. And so I've recognized in that I'm a giver.
Yeah.
And because I wanted a happy home, I wanted a loving home, I wanted peace, and I'm always trying to unite people. If people are arguing, you would find every day, oh, let's think about it. What do you love about this person? How could they, always trying to find the peace. It ended up sipping into friendship, into work, into everything that I do in life. And because of that, I attract people who are also broken, because I want to fix everyone. I want to provide love. I want to show you, oh, we can be fine, kumbaya. But in doing so, I got burnt out because a lot of people are takers.
Yeah.
And so they were taking so much of me that I recognized that your actions are what's going to prove how long you have access for. And guess what? Some season change, that the same people who were once front row seats will become the people in your community that are just like the same bystanders and, strangers. And that's okay, because we can have it all at different seasons and time. Same thing. People can have access at different seasons and times. And some people are there to help you. Some people are there to show you what you do and don't want. And it's okay. But actions are what really defines a person's heart.
Exactly.
Yeah.
More than words, for sure.
More than words would ever do. Yeah. Because I can read words from a piece from a book and newspaper. No, thank you. I'm never short of words. Yeah.
Exactly.
So if someone watching feels like it's very exhausting to pretend all the time, what would you want them to hear? Let's start with you, Rachelle.
I would say find your why and things that align with you. So, like, even you're talking about the people around you and stuff. I've, in the past few years, the friends that were close are not as close. And you're on a train ride, and there's some people that are meant to come with you and some that are not. Yeah. They just come on for a little bit and then they hop off. And so I would say find, like, what really matters to you and make your decisions based on that, and not care about what other people think around you. And if they don't agree, or, they're not aligned, those people are not meant to be in your life. And I think, like, once you feel really aligned, you draw in other people that are also aligned with you, with your goals and your values and your love language, like you're talking, like, about, there's figuring out around you what their love language is. Maybe it's words of affirmation, maybe it's actions. And I think just being authentic too. Everyone has a different version of us. Like in this room, you have a different version of me, you have a different version of me, the audience.
Yes.
And if you try to play up all those versions, you're going to exhaust yourself. So I think just showing up as your true version is what's going to get you there. And again, like the authenticity. And even for me, it took me a while to discover my why and who I was and what I wanted. And I say just take that time to figure out. Like Simon Sinek has a really good celery test. I don't know if you've heard of it.
No, what is that?
Okay, so I'll quickly try to go through it. But so say you are having trouble in your business or in life or anything, you're asking for advice, and you have these people come to you and they're like, you know what really helped me was M&Ms. And you're like, okay, great. And this other person's like, Oreos really helped me. You're like, great. And this other guy's like, almond milk. Almond milk solved everything. And then somebody else was like, celery. And you're like, okay. You're like, I need to fix this. So you're like, you go out and you buy all the items and spend all the money, not even knowing if it's going to work or fix anything. And you're standing in line. If somebody was looking at you in that grocery lineup, they would wonder, what are you making? What are you buying? And then that's where you kind of go, well, what is your why? We'd be like, well, if your why was, oh, I want to only do healthy things, then you would only buy the almond milk and the celery. And it'd be very clear what your why is. You would put down the M&Ms and the Oreos. So that's kind of figuring it out. Like if you figure out what your why is, and then you make your decisions based on that, and then everything will, I think, be a lot more aligned. And that's what I do in business as well. So I 100% recommend the celery test and to think about that.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. I didn't know it. So Efe, what does having it together mean to you now?
Oh, having it together means to be human. Knowing that you are never going to have it together all the time, everywhere, and recognizing that is okay, that is enough. It means to me that I'm experiencing the world as I'm meant to experience it, because it's forever changing. And it's not just about our friends that we might lose along the way, like you described in the train, which happens because, again, seasons, right? And the shift that might happen in our work where it's busy, sometimes it's quiet, or we're panicking about the funding, how we continue what we're doing with people that their lives in our hands. I think it's recognizing that even the best of people sometimes still have moments where things are changing and they're just doing their best. They're just doing their best, they're trying their best, they are moving forward, they're not quitting, That's what it means. It means you wake up every morning to try. Remember your why, which is so important. Remember the things that trigger you. Know your triggers as well is one thing that I always tell people. So that way you know where you're going and they're not setting off all those alarm bells and kind of making you feel uneasy, right? Because some people might do that just to see you crumble and be like, see, I told you. And so yeah, it's just recognizing that as a human race, we're never going to have it together. It goes back to what I said. We're all responsible for each other, whether we like it or not. My choices, my actions can affect somebody else's tomorrow, and I don't know who that person would be. So being a decent human being is a choice that I try to make every day, just knowing that I will do my best today to honor who I am and honor everybody that I see, but also do it from a place of love. If there's correction to be had, make sure that there's respect with it. And just remind people around me that you don't have to be perfect to show up. You don't have to have it all together. You just have to be willing.
Yes.
And that's where the action comes in. You have to be willing to try, to be a good person, to do the right thing, not because you have to, but because you genuinely want to. And that's where that intention comes in, with authenticity, with your action, with humanity. And so that's where we build community, and that's where love kind of overpours, right? Because love is never, it's surplus, it's never short. And so, it's just knowing that everything takes time.
It does.
Because you asked about healing, that's the same thing. We're always going to ever be an ever healing being. Because the world asks so much of us. And as women, we are forever given, we're ever strained, we're ever pulled into different direction. Whether you're single, you're a wife, you're a mother, you're a business person, or you're trying to figure out your corporate world, the world wants something of you as a woman, and you're ever given because you are nature. You are in some way the blueprint of why we exist. You know, you birth life. And so because of it, great responsibility. And so you're always going to be healing. You just have to keep on trying. And so, yeah, just recognizing who you are as a person is enough. You matter simply because you exist in this world. And that in itself is a beautiful masterpiece. And that's who you are. Just go figure out where in this world you want to curve and make your mark and be a champion of impact, and just do that. Focus on that. Know anybody else's and what they're building and what they're doing. Just stay in your own lane and build from there, and let it be enough. And stop comparing yourself to other people who have no idea as to what is taking you to get to who you are or the person that they're looking at. Because like you said, everybody has a different version of everyone. But make sure that whenever you are in a space with somebody, that you show up as yourself, and you also invite them and give them that room to show up as themselves. And I think you've done more than enough in this world.
Very powerful closing here.
Yeah.
Do you want to add anything
No, I
to
think
that?
just the comparison, I think, is a big thing too. It's just a killer of joy. So
Very much.
I think that's, and I've gone through that even, you know, especially with social media. Like I post and ghost. I don't scroll. I don't look. I'm bad at answering DMs because you just start to look at all these other people that seem like they're doing so much better and doing all these things, and you're like, what am I doing? And even though you've accomplished so much and you should be feeling very proud of yourself, a lot of times we just compare. So yeah.
I love that for you. Ghosts.
Yeah,
Post
I just
and ghost,
disappear.
I love it.
I disappear and then I reappear. And people wonder, where have you been? Yeah.
I
All the
love that.
modulation.
No, thank you so much for this conversation. That was amazing. We're gonna open the floor to the question. No, the question. Yeah.
Yes, you got it.
Do you have any questions for our speakers today?
I mean, I'm just marveled by the intellect, the articulation. I'm a decade and a bit older than each of you, and you know, there's different eras of brain fog that will come. So I'm marveling and in awe of all three of you. I lately have been really reflecting on the role of silence in interactions. You know, we've talked about meditation and self-isolation and times on our own, but I've been exploring. Unfortunately, I'm a one language speaker, but I've been playing with the fact that silence is maybe my second language, and I find I'm using it more and more in interactions to try and move things forward. So I'll stop there. I guess I also am a talker, but any reflections from either of you on how you use silence as you're entering rooms and
Yeah. Well, I think even as women, for some reason, we always feel like we need to explain ourselves. And I think I felt that for a long time. You know, if you can't make something, you're like, well, I can't make it because X, Y, and Z. But I've recently learned, like, no is a full sentence. And I love using it. You're just no. Or maybe that doesn't, you know, align with you, or you don't want to do that. But I do think, too, that there is power in silence as well. Like, I think sometimes... I feel like sometimes when I interact with people, and I tend to ask them a lot of questions about themselves, and they feel a lot more comfortable in the situation, and sometimes don't give them a lot about me, but then also sometimes I think being silent in that way, I don't know, gives me a bit more power, and I don't know how to explain that.
Yeah.
Like, but there is a power in the silence, or not giving as much, and I think maybe it's also when you're around those people that you're like, okay, I don't feel the need to give them as much, but I do love the no is a full sentence, I think, too. Yeah, and all that over-explaining.
I thank you, honestly, for that. I think it's a great reflection. Silence is a beautiful thing, because I'm at that point where I tell people that I'm 39, and I love celebrating my birthday because I think it's a gift, because at one point it was never even a possibility for me to live beyond 10. So when I think about silence, I think about how much it welcomes us or invites us to self-reflect. Whether you're in a room full of people and you're just observing and taking it in, which I do a lot, I've always been a talker because I feel like I'd never want people to be awkward or by themselves. So when I see somebody sitting, I'm always like, come on over. Even at a restaurant when I'm already on a solo date, I see somebody there, I'm like, are you okay? Just checking.
Yeah, we're the same.
And then I'll still pass that look of silence to you, like I acknowledge you. And so sometimes words of love or reaction doesn't always have to come out of your mouth. It can be a body language, it could be a look, it could also just be you not saying anything, and people will get the response. Because think about it as a child. When they are supposed to not be touching something, my mom used to have this look where she would just be silent and would just be like, okay, we understand now, we're in trouble. I'm learning the same thing where my daughter will do something. She's only 13 months, but I'm like, don't touch the microwave or stand in front of it. When I stop, she comes closer to me and lays a kiss if I'm sitting on my knees, because that's how far she can get. Or now she takes my hands and places a kiss because I do that to her. Or she just stops in her tracks and acknowledge and look eye contact. So silence really can be anything that you want it to be. If you feel like your life or your situation or where you are in this season is leading you to perhaps be the one to listen more, maybe see it as that and take it in, take the information, the conversations. If you think the silence is mostly for you to approach a version of yourself that needs to heal, maybe also use that silence to search deeper, within you without having the words out just yet to say what's going on in there, why you search within yourself. And then when you have an answer or you have a theory, you can write it down, you can speak on it. But silence is a beautiful thing. I actually love it. I love to be quiet. I think because we've had such a challenging upbringing that's demanded so much of us as we grow older, we start taking a step back and just pouring back into ourselves, and that's where that silence come in. So it could be a different version that is asking of you in your season. Hopefully you can find out what it is.
That was an amazing question. Any other questions here?
I think I do have a question. So, first off, thank you for this. This has been really wonderful, and I really appreciate how you ladies have opened up, both personally and professionally, and sharing about both your business, your personal lives. And I think that's where my question comes from. You both touched upon how important it is to be authentic and yourself, in this season of life. And I wanted to pull on that thread and talk about, do you find yourself, trying to navigate how you integrate all those different parts of yourselves? And what I mean by that is, I find myself, so I think we're similar age, so I'm going to be turning 40 next month. And I have, thank you. We're all in the same age. And, I find myself that I feel like I've navigated through so many different parts of myself. So like my own personal journey is I'm born in Kenya. That's where all my family, that's where my parents have lived. But then I came to the States. I'm now living in Canada. I work professionally. I'm starting as a business owner. So I find myself in this context sometimes where when I ask myself what it means to be authentic, there is, there's a Kenyan part, there's a US part, there's a Canadian part, there's a professional part. And so sometimes I find myself in a space where I'm like, so what does it mean to be authentic in this season of my life? Because all of those things shape me in some shape or form, some, positively, some maybe no longer serve me. So I was just curious, you've both navigated, through so much, personally, professionally, and find yourselves here, where you are. So what does that mean to you in this stage to be authentic? Do you find, is it what you're working on now, or how do you kind of integrate all of those different things that you've been through?
Yeah.
That's a very good question.
Do you want to go? Yeah, no, I think it's a good question. And honestly, I applaud you for recognizing that in yourself, that you are navigating a lot of open portals. And one thing I would say for sure is be mindful, is what I want to say first and foremost. Be mindful that your identity now isn't stripped away because you're questioning what was before, all the places that you've lived in, because there could be a little bit of a disconnect and almost like a sense of self being lost. So be mindful of that. Because I say it because I've been there. I've lived in a lot of places. Like I said, my mom was a missionary, and Vancouver is now home for us. And so I see a lot of identity shift, and people used to ask me, how do you actually like cope with having Effie of Belgium, Effie of US, Effie of UK, Effie of every, I'm like, I'm a citizen of the world, child, you know? So, but I want to say that one way that I talk about, when I think about authenticity, I think is showing up as yourself in that season where you are. And then when people ask you questions, then you can open those chapters of your lives that you have lived. And if you still have access to it, like as in you go back home to Kenya often, you can talk about your experience there, bring it into the context of what you were living, the conversations you're having. You don't want to actually like let go of those because they're who you are. You know, those are chapters of your lives in your life book, if you consider it that way, that you can say chapter 13 was me in Kenya, or chapters 27 was when I was in the US. They all exist. Thus, your authentic self. It's a story, it's a piece of you that happened before. But how does it fit into the life that you have now, the business that you're starting here, your life in Canada? So authenticity is just being you. It's like I said, it's giving yourself an invitation to exist as your truest form, and then inviting somebody else to also exist in your truest form. So I show up as myself. I don't hide anything. Like I said, I am who I am, online and offline. When I'm having a hard time, I talk about it as a mother or as a person or as a business person. I share it though in the context of I have my close friends and then I have my open place. So yeah, so but if you want to ask me on a deeper level, I always ask people, I'd be like, how much of the truth do you want? You know, because that's where I'm asking you now to be like, that's also where I'm seeing your actions, how evolved and how much do you want to hear, or are you just trying to dig for information and find a weak spot, right? So that's where mindfulness comes in, and being self-aware and having discernment kicks into that authenticity, because sometimes some people see authenticity and they don't like it. And they might challenge your thoughts and be like, but you said you've lived there, or you know, it's almost feeling like an interview, and then they're trying to pick. So just know which part of that authenticity that you're trying to uncover. And this is your homework. All of the places you have journeyed through that have brought you here, maybe consider writing 2 or 3 things down in all of those things, or maybe even one from each of these places where you actually really felt, what was the moment in those cities where you really felt your most happiest, your most freest, your most genuine self? What were you doing? What were you eating? Who were you with? So try to document all those things and then kind of then bring it home to where you are now. When have you felt your most authentic self in Canada? And then try to see if you can connect the dots of that story that you tell yourself, and see how and who or what you were doing that made you feel more authentic. And you might actually just find your map that helps you to continue that same trajectory, knowing that there's one commonality that connects you to all your history, your identity, your roots, and your journey, right? So yeah, authenticity is just you being you every single day and not hiding any part of yourself when you show up in the world. But also being mindful that not everybody deserves that access to, but only the ones that has the purest heart and the actions have shown you that they can hold what you tell them with such integrity and respect. Yeah. Sorry, I gave you guys homework.
So that was great. I was only at it because you added the book analogy, and I went through a life coaching session where it was you're climbing a mountain and you have a backpack full of books, and mine it was books and t-shirts and socks, and it was pretty much everything that you have gone through, all your trauma, all your experiences, everything is made up in life, you're carrying that's what's made you, but it wasn't helping me get to where I wanted to go, or I didn't know who I was. I was trying to figure out, like, who am I? What am I doing? What is my purpose? And through that, I had to slowly get rid of the books and the t-shirts and the socks and selective. And it took a while. It's like, because you're like, who am I then? If I dump everything out of this backpack, who am I? And I think just taking pieces of your life and being like, what do I want to take on this journey with me? And figuring out what you want to keep in that backpack. Yeah. You don't have to dump everything. Maybe you don't need a massive light load. Maybe it's working for you and you can keep all those books and socks and t-shirts. But realizing that you have the choice to take on what you want and carry with you up this mountain. And so maybe it is restarting, and I had to restart and create a whole new book and fill a whole new backpack, and it was a lot to go through, because you're like, who am I? But I think also doing that exercise, kind of being like, what do you want to take in your backpack with you, and what needs to stay behind to really shape that identity moving forward.
We gave a homework.
Yeah.
Yes.
Tie everything
you have
together.
homework there.
No, it's one. It's one. It's good. It's one.
Yeah,
Connect
it
all the
is.
dots of all the authentic, things, the people, the who, and then look at the backpack. Is there anything from those journey that is in the backpack already, or that needs to come out of the backpack? And then that way you can let go of what no longer serves you to keep the things that do serve you, so you can move forward with this version of yourself that you are most happy with. So just one.
And then the search for the things that you want to move towards.
Exactly.
To not have in your back.
Yeah,
Exactly.
you're making
Because now you
space.
have space,
That-
you have all the
exactly.
clarity,
That's really
the
good.
understanding, the discernment, and now you know that you're not carrying a bunch of dead weight things. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's perfect. I love that. Thank you so much for this conversation. Thank you for being in the audience. That was great. So I think we can wrap it up.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.